Hey guys, Mark, SolarGames. Real quick video before I start heading out for Grand Archive Worlds. I think it's really important that I kind of cover this now because it's this person's, I don't know, doing some shady stuff. We got to call it out. Basically, it has come to my attention that there is some sort of scummy type of person who's trying to sell a bunch of like dual lands, etc. on eBay. I know this happens all the time. I know it's like, look, it's like, I know some of you guys are like, Mark, what the fuck? This is like every day, right? Like, what's different? And then the other people who are like, what the? People are selling fake duels? What do you mean Magic cards are fake? There's fakes out there? I know, right? So before two sides of you guys all fight each other and all that stuff, just want to basically bring this news to everybody. I know part of kind of like what I want to do, like I stated many times, I want to bring truth to cardboards. I hate asymmetric information. And so part of this is just me sharing that information with you. The story basically is like this, right? So my friend, who is, a really close friend of mine, we play Commander all the time. We draft all this stuff, right? Many years of doing this stuff together. Great guy, really just genuine, nice guy. Came to me recently. He's like, hey, I'm starting to actually make a little bit more money. I want to buy some duels, right? Hey, congratulations. Good job. I think it's honestly, you're going to have a great time. Plus, you get to play with the duels because he plays Commanders still, So yeah, I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to be pretty busy, so I don't have anything I can price out for you right now, but, I'll hook you up like when I get back, right? From, all the stuff I'm doing. So of course, he's a little, he's like, hey, I'm gonna look around and see what I can get. And I'm quoting him a price. It's probably gonna be somewhere around like 2,500. This is like, friends and family type of pricing, right? 25, 28, something like that. Pricing for, these are like, not gonna be near mint duels. They're just gonna be a little more like MP, HP perhaps type of duels, and some other cards that he's looking for. Right? He's looking for some like nice cards like Mox Diamonds, LEDs and things like that, of that nature. Anyways, long story short, he goes on Macari, or I guess he's looking everywhere. And this guy, he's purchased Magic cards on eBay before, so he has some experience. I'm not like worried about stuff. But he goes to Macari and he's like, hey, Mark, this guy has like a set of duels. It looks really good, blah blah blah, Or at first he just says, I think I found a guy who has a set of duels. It looks really good, and I think he's only asking for like 1,700. I'm like, 1,700. So you're telling me 10 duels, right? Near mint condition, he's asking for $170 per card on average. That seems really low for dual lands, right? And again, we're all talking about revised dual lands. So for those who are listening, it's not beta, unlimited, etc., alpha. It's revised duels. But even then, revised duels, I mean, like you got Underground Sea, upper stuff, right? Underground Sea, Tropical Islands, Volcanic. These are going to be a little bit more expensive. Then you got the like middle tier Taigas, that kind of stuff, and then the lower tier like Savannah, etc. Right? So you essentially it doesn't make any sense, like because of Savannah, like even some of the lower tier duels, you're looking at like I don't know 230-ish. Like if it's near mint, you probably have to pay 250. 280, somewhere around that range, 250 to 300 for the lower tier. The mid tier is around like 4 or 500. I guess nowadays with duels being where they are, it's 4 or 500. And the upper tier, you're looking at like if it's near mint, right, like $600 to $900, maybe 1,000 even. Like I've seen UGSs sell for like about $1,000, right? Tropical Islands at some point in the past were selling for this price. So it doesn't make any sense that this guy's like doing this. So, but I'm like, hey, are you sure it's legit? Like, if you're gonna meet the guy, happy to help. Just by the way, I'm not gonna be in town for a while, so don't do this trade yet. And his response to me is like, oh, this guy's in Staten Island, New York, right? And we're on the West Coast. This guy's on the East Coast. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Is this like a Craigslist thing? Like, where did you find this guy? And he's like, oh no, it's like a Macari listing. So he shoots me the link, and I look at it. By the way, like that Macari listing has already been deleted, so. Like I'll get to that, right? So he shows me the listing, and then by the time I'm looking at the listing is sold for 1,400. Okay, so I'm like, okay, did you just buy this thing? Did you offer him $1,400 for the cards, and then he accepted, or what happened? And he's like, yeah, it's really great. I offered this price, and he just took it. It's like, oh, really, really appreciative. Want to. send it to me. And I'm like, okay, hold on, like, be really careful. I know he's like, hey, it's Macari. You send the money, it's not like the money's there. The Macari holds the money until you accept and verify. But I'm like, hey, be careful. Macari has a couple problems, right? So for those that you guys don't know, I do sell on Macari. I sell on, Macari, TCG Player, eBay. They have benefits and costs. Macari, I'll just tell you for the buyer side, when the item arrives, so Macari is all based on tracking. When you pay for the item, Macari holds that cash. So the buyer does not, buyer pays the money, of course, but the cash is held by Macari. The seller doesn't get anything. The seller has to send the item. When the item arrives, this is all based on tracking. When the item arrives, then Macari basically gives the buyer 3 days, right? From the moment the item arrives, 3 days, so like 72 hours, to verify. If you're like, hey, I opened the package, everything's good, you hit, yes, I opened it, 5-star, whatever, and you say, cool, that transaction is complete. I believe, and I'm not 100% sure how this works beyond that, but I believe once you do that, your options as a buyer to get your money back for any issues is like next to nothing, right? Because you've literally said this is fine, and now if you go back on your words and say, no, actually it's not fine, I mean, that's between you and Macari. And the moment you rate the sellers, and this is why the sellers always say something like, hey, like especially the desperate ones. Like I never do this because I don't need to. I'm selling this stuff all the time. I'm so busy. But there are a lot of sellers who will do things like this, right? The moment, dude, these guys, man, I'm like, are you on the phone like every second? The moment the item arrives and tracking updates, they're like, okay, so the item's there. Can you please open it, rate me, please? The reason they say this is because if you don't rate them, they have to wait on the money. It could be like 5 days, right, for shipping from Staten Island to West Coast over here. So he's waiting 5 days for the cash, and he's already out the item. And you can imagine, like, if it's a legit reseller, you're selling like thousands of dollars worth of cards. You don't want to be out cash. You want to be able to like say, hey, did you get the item? Is everything cool? Great, and then just close the transaction. But on the buyer side, something you should be really careful about is this. When the item arrives, you have 72 hours, like I said. But if you don't actually do anything that 72 hours, the platform will automatically rate the seller, 5 stars, whatever, and then they get paid, period. So please do take time. Make sure you're around to accept the items. This is why I told my friend, I was like, hey, I'm not going to be in town. So if you need me to verify anything, I better be back in 3 days, because if the item arrives too early, for example, and I'm out of town and you can't get to me, whatever, you could be toast. And he's like, I think I'm okay, And again, the guy is not like an idiot, right? This is a PhD. This guy's a very smart, very intelligent individual. He has his way of kind of verifying. I think the only thing I was a little bit concerned with is like he hasn't handled older cards. He doesn't have other copies, right? If you have other copies, it's also another way to kind of verify authenticity. If you have another, let's say, dual land, you could look and be like, hey, this doesn't look the same. You can do the light test. You can do the green dot test. Look at my other videos on this channel. I show you guys how to do that. It's probably time to update those videos again, just to redo hey, here's how you verify again, right? But by and large, yeah, you can do the verifications yourself. You can do that and then see if it's real. He was about to take it to the lab, weigh it, and all that stuff, which, like, weighing cards, I'm going to be honest with you, unless you have a reference card, they are not going to all weigh the same. And I know it's like high precision scales, but even cards have variance. So it's a little tricky. He was going to put it under magnification, but the thing is about that is, unless you know what to look for, like I've heard people talk about rosette pattern and things like that, right? And there are fake cards that have rosette patterns because they're printed with a dot printer, a rosette dot printer, not with, like a freaking Epson or something, right? HP. But yeah, so but they're still fakes. You actually have to verify other things like the core of the paper, which is why the light test, or like very, very small detailed things like the green dot test, right? That's how you kind of verify those things. Anywho, fast forward the story a little bit. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me do this. Let me go and kind of verify this person. And just a lot of times there are ways you can kind of like suss out like people or sellers who are fake. So I start messaging the seller on Macari, right? With my reputation. It's just my main account. I didn't create another secondary account or anything like that. My main account, 400 plus reviews, all that stuff. I'm like, hey, I see you're selling these cards, and pretending, right? So like, do you have I saw that you sold this set. Do you have another set to sell? right? And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I sold that one. Let me check with my brother and see if he has a set. So I'm like, okay, like this seems okay. This gentleman on the platform, he has like I think 19 reviews on Macari. So he isn't like brand new, but he isn't. I mean, but he has no sales history, right? So he purchased quite a few items, but who knows what he bought? So it doesn't really matter. Maybe he bought a set of fake dual lands, right? It doesn't matter. What really ticked me off is what really tipped me off when I saw the listing. By the way, kind of rewinding a little bit, is that when my friend forwarded me the Macari listing, I took a look at it. The first thing that was a big red sign a big red sign was like, hey, all the duels are like near mint condition. And I don't mean like, they're like really good looking. They're like perfect looking, a little too perfect. And again, anything that's like, super far away under like, inside a sleeve taken with a cell phone photo, you're not going to be able to tell real from fake at all, really. The pictures, high magnification, yes. Low, no. So, I mean, and Macari doesn't do like super high res images, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm looking at them like, okay, all this cards is too perfect. The second thing that tipped me off was this. He scanned all these into TCG Player. And you guys know, right? Like, the app literally told him, hey, your collection's worth, these 10 dual lands are worth market price, $4,470, right? Near mint condition, all that stuff. For some reason, this person is able to or willing to sell a collection of cards that the app literally says is worth $4,400 for $1,400. You tell me if there's a problem there, right? And I know like there's some people who are like, okay, really desperate for money. I guarantee you these guys are not that desperate for money, okay? If he's really wanted $1,400, all he has to do is take a UGS, take a volcanic island, and say these two cards, $1,400, right? Much more believable. But nobody in their right mind would sell $4,400 worth of cards that they know is worth that much for $1,400. That's another part that was like, okay, this seems a little bit weird because it's the people who like list the cards, but they also have the screenshot of the TCG Player and showing you how much the cards are worth. So, anyways, like this thing that goes down. Then, like a day later, he messaged me on the platform and says, hey, you know what? The sale didn't go through with the other guy, and so it's available. If you want, I can relist it and you can buy it. And I'm like, okay, so this is a little bit shady. Like, what do you mean didn't go through? So I messaged my friend because he's the person who bought the cards, right? I'm like, did he cancel on you? He's like, no, he hasn't canceled, but he also hasn't shipped. And part of it was because I said, hey, by the way, I'm gonna test these things. When I get the cards before I can rate you and all that stuff. So maybe that spooked him a little bit. Of course, later, a couple days later, or not, a couple hours later, he does actually cancel the whole thing. So that listing is no longer available on Macari, by the way. So that's where, FYI, that's where it went, and that's it. Then, within that same day, like, a little bit later, my friend sends me a link, right, of 2 listings on eBay of the same guy selling the same set of duels and just basically on eBay, right? This time he's a little bit smarter, I guess. He's not like fire selling $4,000 for $1,000 or $1,700 or $1,400. He's doing auction style, right? So hey, here's a set of duels, $4,000 worth. Let's start like bidding at $1,000, whatever, right? But the problem with this is that I guess he has 2 accounts. One account has like almost no reputation, or it has 0 reputation. So of course nobody's even buying this thing. Nobody's touching it. Everyone looks at it as like, what the heck is this? The other problem though is because a lot of buyers, I guess, aren't linking the 2 accounts together. Because even though they literally have the same fucking image, guys, like look at the image of the profile photo. It's the same one, okay? It's the same dude. And a different name with like 6 reputation. And this listing is like, okay, also I'll throw in some mana vaults in there. I'll give you guys 2, demonic tutors and other things, like a little bit like extra stuff. And then he's putting that stuff on the eBay as well. And that one actually, last time I checked, has like 4 bidders at $3,500. So I'm pretty sure some people are going to get burned. And and the reason I say this is like this, right? A lot of people are like, hey, Mark, eBay has verification. They'll do the verification for you. Don't worry about it, right? Caution, that's not actually true. eBay has the authentication program for trading cards for singles. So if you sell 1 card at a time, Yes, you send it to wherever this verification center is. eBay then, has PGS or whoever verify the card, and then they send it out to the buyers, right? That's how that process works. But that's not true when it's a set of cards. And so maybe this person knows, the scammer knows what to do, or maybe just got lucky, but they're selling it as a set. So a set of cards do not actually go through verification at all. And here's the tricky part. What happens, right? So the smart way to do this is like he's putting potentially some real cards in with the fakes. And technically, if he sends this over, and of course, like eBay's gonna protect you and all that stuff, but the wrong person opens the wrong package. Number one, they don't know what they don't have. They look at like the demonic tutors, and maybe their friends, look at it because that's the one he's probably gonna play, or like, hey, this is legit. Oh, the other cards are cool, good too. This could happen. Less likely. More likely though, they're gonna get the package. They're gonna open the package and be like, hey, this duel looks wrong. Or let's say they know what to look for. Put it under a bauble, a jeweler's bauble, jeweler's loop type of thing, and they start looking, and they're like, hey, this doesn't look right. The issue now is if they go and open a dispute with eBay, I'm pretty sure buyer protection will help them, because again, it's like reputation is really bad. Plus now my video will be out there, so eBay or whoever, if you're watching this and you're the purchaser, I guess, and something goes wrong, use this video to kind of, I don't know, show eBay. I don't know if they care, but it helps, right? The problem I'm having is like, what if the other cards that he's selling in that collection are actually real? Technically, if you go to seller protection, eBay says, hey, or buyer protection, eBay says, sure, we'll open the case, whatever. The seller complains, I did send you real cards. When you send them back, because they'll take the return, you send back fakes. This gets really tricky, right? Because yes, 2 of the cards were fake or whatever, or 10 of the cards were fake, but 4 of the cards are real. They could argue that, like, hey, you're trying to trick me. So now it's on eBay to figure out what to do. And I guarantee you, man, like getting money out of eBay, for eBay to basically pay both sides, it's near impossible. So very likely what's going to happen is that, eBay may arbitrate and say, you know what, the seller's right in this case, or whatever. But a lot of times they will side with the buyer, but that's not always guaranteed, right? So whoever buys this thing, just got to be really careful. Film the whole process. Speak with authority about like what and how it's fake. That usually helps. Take it to a card shop, have the card shop like write something in paper, say, hey, by the way, eBay, this is my customer. They took these cards to me and they're fake. Ideally, you open the cards at the card shop because, again, there are a possibility. I mean, imagine you're a seller on eBay, right? You sell the set and you're a legitimate seller. You sell the set to somebody, they return it saying it's fake, right? How does eBay arbitrate that? Really? eBay never saw the cards. This never went through eBay. There's no authentication on these cards. eBay doesn't, who do they trust? Do they trust the sellers? Do they trust the buyer, right? It's really tricky. And I'm just saying, like, I feel like this is not going to go down well either way. So I guess public PSA, if you guys are watching this video, please share with other people. Like, I know it's, just share with whoever you can. Let's get this news out there. Let's basically get this person kicked off the platform. Look, guys, I love Magic cards. I think it's really cool that people can collect and play with some of these older cards, power up their decks, whatever. I just don't think the way that this kind of stuff can happen on platforms should be accepted. And yes, I'm not catching every single scammer who's doing scummy things on eBay, but when I see it, when I catch it, I will say something about it. So there it is. Links in the description for the eBay listings. You guys can also watch along with me on like what's going to happen to these listings, who's actually going to buy, whether it goes bad, etc. But if you're the bidder or whatever, feel free to contact me as well. Somehow, like comments, whatever. I will try to help. Obviously, like in the past, like I've shown you guys, I've helped just honestly YouTube viewers, right, with authentication issues, buying from legit companies. Well, maybe not super legit PWCC, but companies, right? And showing that the cards were fake. Like, it's crazy that they were selling fakes to people through their auction website. So you got to be really careful about things like this. So anyways, Mark from SolarGames, share the video, tell your friends. I'll see you next time. Stay classy.